Ellen, it feels like the pressure continues to mount. California, New York, where does that leave Juul?
Juul is under a ton of pressure right now from seemingly many different regulatory bodies, state prosecutors, and the list goes on and on. So in addition to, as we mentioned, New York State Attorney General and the California Attorney General, back in May they had faced actually a similar suit from the Attorney General of North Carolina. You know, they have probes and inquiries from the FTC. The CDC is looking into health effects. Like, it just seems like every agency that you can think of that might have some connection to Juul is taking action to show, like, we're not just going to sit idly by while we see this epidemic, as the FDA has called it, of youth vaping.
What is a bigger concern here? Is it the fact that they were marketing to teenagers, or the fact that they had some misleading statements about how addictive nicotine can be and that nicotine was in their products?
It seems like it's both. You know, I've heard many anti-vaping advocates or concerned parents talk about something that seems maybe surprising to adult consumers, this idea that some teens or children may not know that there's nicotine in Juul products, but that is a concern that I've heard people discuss, and it seems like that is something that's coming up in relation to some of the advertising that Juul has done. In some of these cases more recently, it does seem like there's also these marketing tactics around both using advertisements that had sort of a youthful look and colorful color themes and young models. That was a concern, as well as in one of these suits, I believe it's in the California one, Juul's accused of consistently shipping products to customers who maybe had names that were obviously not real. One of them was a customer who filled out their name as beer can. You know, and this is stuff where I think they were saying that Juul was just, they were saying that they of course don't want youth using their products, but they were looking for examples where it seemed like they weren't putting in the effort to stop it.
You know, it was interesting. I was reading the story, and it said from the New York State Attorney General said that Juul basically took a page from Big Tobacco's playbook, and it just strikes me as how was Juul able to do this? And now it's had dozens of deaths. What is it doing that Big Tobacco wasn't doing? Because Big Tobacco has been relatively okay recently. So why is Juul now all of a sudden in trouble?
Well, I think there's been decades in which Big Tobacco has then over time been more and more regulated in terms of what you can advertise. You you just don't see the same sorts of advertisements for cigarettes that you would have 30 or 40 years ago. That being said, I think then people are looking at the way that Juul has employed allegedly some of the same tactics that Big Tobacco used many years ago, such as going into schools and doing education programs about addiction and things like that, but them being sponsored by Juul. This is something that Juul did that came up in congressional hearings that many people have cited as a way that Juul is sort of copying that same playbook.
And for their part, Juul came out and said that they're, continuing to be committed to resetting the vapor category and earning the trust of society. But I wonder, from a business standpoint, we know that they had a partnership with Altria, but the Altria Philip Morris deal has been called off in part because of the concerns over Juul and vaping. Where are they from a business standpoint?
I think I've been sensing from the company that they have really, really been trying to put their public message saying we really want to be compliant, we really want to be careful, and we really want to earn back the trust of American consumers, and this has been an interesting pattern. I think one thing that's been challenging for them, as you mentioned, these vaping deaths have been a big part of the headlines. In fairness to Juul, many of the vaping deaths, as we learn more about them, those have been connected to THC-related vapes that have, in many cases, vitamin E and other additives that Juul says is not present in their products. They just are getting a lot of heat for it because they are the biggest e-cigarette company in the U.S. and abroad. So it's been a complicated time for them reputationally as well.